Good morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. Along with my colleague John North, I'm John Becker, and with us this morning our panel, Susan Richardson Williams. She's a Republican, runs her own PR firm. Dennis Francis is a Democrat. He runs his own law firm, and we are pleased to have both of them with us. And you're with us to hear more about a couple of subjects. We're going to hear from Congressman Chuck Fleischmann of East Tennessee about what's been happening in Congress, the latest budget deal, and also a little bit of a kerfuffle, if you will, this week in both the House and the Senate side. But we're going to begin with this discussion that's been ongoing this week and the hearings just wrapping up about whether the state of Tennessee should say no to almost $2 billion in federal education funding. That's a question that the Speaker wanted this committee to investigate. We're going to hear from Speaker Sexton first and then get some perspective from a leader at Hawkins County Schools. Let's listen.
The main thing is we need to know as a state, when we go into a contract with the federal government, whether you agree with it or not, we need to know the terms and conditions of that contract. And we also need to know how wide open we are to exposure of that contract, meaning what can they make us do that we have no control over? And so we need to have a better understanding of what the strings are, or maybe there are no strings. What's the restrictions? How can you use it? How can you not use it? I think the biggest thing I've learned this week so far is the amount of information that's being put out that says that we're going to cut these benefits to these students in the schools, which is not the case. All we said is, should we be paying for those with federal money instead of state money? And if we pay it with state money, does that give us more autonomy and freedom in our K through 12 department? That's a conversation I think we should have about any federal money we take. And also, when you enter into contracts in your personal life, you're going to read about, can they change the terms and conditions on you on a moment's notice, or are you locked in for a certain time? All things that we should see as a state and have a better understanding with the federal government. I think the most interesting part is the U.S. Department of Education was invited to come down to testify and tell us what is and what isn't. And they refuse. They don't want to tell us what the strings are. Maybe they don't know all the strings are attached. But we're not talking about rejecting or cutting anything that would harm any school district. All we're saying is, instead of taking federal money, we'll take state money. If they're used to providing that service and having that paid for, we will do it. But at the same time, we need to understand the relationship between the state and the federal government in it. And so I think there's a lot of people, it's unknown, they're not sure, and there's so much misinformation. It's just like, let us have the conversations. Let's talk about it. Let's bring people in who understand the issue that can provide insight to us. Because as a state, we should do our due diligence in understanding what is and what is not factual. I think that the U.S. Department of Education is so much of a big brother dominant figure that they feel like they can tell you to do anything you want to do, and you have to do it because you're scared of them taking the money. And we should be focused on the quality of education and how to provide quality of education and see if we can do that ourselves, or do we need help of the federal government?
So, from the Speaker, we hear from someone who testified this week at that hearing, and that is the Director of Schools in Hawkins County.
We have a $69 million budget, and roughly $7 million of that comes from federal funds. So right at 10%. Sorry. And the biggest pots of money are for Title I, Title II, Title III, IDEA, and our school lunch program, as well as our CTE programs.
So if that money went away, what would happen?
We'd have to find replacements for it. Those funds secure services for the most needy students. So if you look at Title I, it's for our socioeconomically challenged or disadvantaged students, those that are considered poor by the state or by federal guidelines. We have additional academic services we provide under Title I through assistance that are aimed at the school site levels, predominantly in our elementary schools, but that does trickle up through middle school. You look at Title II, that's all the recruitment and retention that we use or that we use that funding for our teachers. So any professional development in-house or out of house, any support services, training, any of that type of thing. If you look at Title III, those are for EL students, English language learners that come to us with either being fluent in another language other than English, or coming to us with less than fluency in English as required by the state. And then if you look at our school lunch program, we're district-wide Title I, which means we meet the threshold for being a poor rural school system. So those services under the school lunch program are aimed at providing free or reduced lunches for those that qualify. CTE, we gain additional monies for helping students gain meaningful employment while they're in high school through internships, work-based learning opportunities, and then job placement following high school.
We have heard from supporters of this idea to say no to the federal money, that it comes with too many strings. What are those strings from your perspective?
No more so than what the state requires for its funds. And that's, I think, the little bit of irony here is that I think this whole notion maybe started with some progressive or what some would consider as woke ideologies attached to some of the federal funds that are coming down to fairly conservative state in Tennessee. And of course, we have some of those same concerns. If that infiltrates, if politics infiltrate education, I think that's a bad thing. So I get where that originally started, but now it's shifted because there was not a demonstrated example of those woke or progressive policies. I think it's shifted to maybe some red tape or undue regulations or rules that are attached to those funds. And I don't know if they've received much evidence on that either. So I think the premise may be a little bit misguided at this point.
If I fully understand you correctly, any strings that are with the federal government right now also are with the state.
Correct. And I think they had the task force had additional testimony this last week, and in looking at some of the tape there, it looks like some of the experts they called up even pointed out the fact that a lot of our state funding has just as much regulation and red tape as what the federal funding does.
You testified as well. What do you hope the committee took away from your testimony?
I think we had one member of the representatives there present that kept pushing the question: if we were to take those funds away and replace them with funds that don't have regulations or red tape, what could you do effectively with that money as a director of schools? When it came to me, I answered based on the laws that we're supposed to follow. So if you look at our special ed population, we are required to meet their needs in our public schools, so on and so forth with EL students or our poor students. Those mandates and those requirements are not going to change regardless of the funding we get to meet those needs. My question back to them was, if you have roughly $2 billion a year to put toward replacement of federal funds, why not ask us as directors of schools, particularly those in rural and poorer systems, how that money could be used much more effectively at the local level and take some of the tax burden off some of our local taxpayers? We've got a lot of logistics and maintenance and facility requirements that are put on us based on our old buildings that we don't have additional funding for other than to go to our taxpayer base. So if the state's got that money, I think a very successful use of that money would possibly be to grant us the opportunity to use some of that state money to upgrade our buildings and infrastructure.
So if I understand you correctly, and I was going to say, if you've got an extra $2 billion, we have a way to spend it.
We could help them with that.
Yes. Dennis, your first impression of these meetings and what's come of them with state lawmakers?
Well, I hate to say it, but it sounds like nobody knows what to do. We have a conflict between state law and federal law. Who's going to spend the money on A, and we want to spend it on B. Here we are late, what month is this? November, I guess, coming into the end of another year. We still don't have a clue what we're doing. All I know is that we can't not use that money for education. We don't need to hire any more football coaches for $75 million like A&M did, or whoever else.
Yes.
But keep your eye on the money.
All right, Susan, your impression of that discussion happening among lawmakers?
Well, I actually think it might have been a good thing, might be a good thing to look into it. Senator Lunsberg had said from the beginning that, you know, there was no a mandate to do anything. They were just trying to get information. And it sounds like, from what conversations I'd had with Speaker Sexton, they're having a difficult time doing that, trying to figure out what are state rules and what are federal rules, and which ones, you know, what strings, if you want to call it that. The state may have some, the feds may have some, and I think they're just trying to figure it all out. I can safely say I think there's more to come. He also said that he thought Government Operations Committee would probably look and delve into it a little more. But it was difficult getting information out of our Department of Education in the state level.
We've got to take a quick break on Inside Tennessee, but John North has a few other things to add to this discussion. Again, an important one about saying no to almost $2 billion in federal education dollars. We're back with that right after this.